and what it was going to do for Mount Dora, there was not one car on that videotape. Not one. And that's what I couldn't help but notice. Amy drove me down this morning from, I live at Altoona now, and as she drove me down to this area, I said to Amy, it's hard to believe the number of cars on this highway. And the schools are, of course, going through what all those cars bring with them, which is lots and lots of children. So Mount Dora High School was a wonderful place to work. I had a great time there. We had a lot of fun. We worked hard, spent a lot of hours. I remember one time going to Mr. Folsom and telling him, I probably shouldn't tell this in mixed company, but I needed a new video camera and I needed a projector to go with it. He agreed to the video camera, but not the projector. Oh no, we can't afford that. And I told him, I said, well, we need it so the students can see it much better than they can just showing on a little screen. And I said, Mr. Folsom, you're going to force me to sell my virginity again. And I thought Joe Folsom was going to fall out of his chair. And he said, let me think about this a little bit. I went back to my office in the library and got a call from Mr. Folsom a few minutes later. He said, I've talked to Mrs. Fowler, Jerry Fowler, who was the bookkeeper. And she said, we can afford to do the projector. I said, oh, well, that's great. That's going to save a lot of problems on my part. That's one of my funniest memories of Mount Dora High School. When I left Mount Dora High, it was a brand new school. I remember thinking that was my dream library. And at the time that I retired, they said, don't you want to go one more year? And I said, no, thank you. I don't think I do. And so I left Mount Dora High School in good hands and in better shape than I found it. So I figured it was a good time to go. Now, who's next? Deanne was the teacher. Let's get her up here.
My name is Deanne, and if I forget to say Carter, I'll get in trouble. Deanne Carter Wilson. I was at Mount Dora High from 78 to 98. In fact, when I got out of college, Mr. Molnar hired me at Eustis High School. And so I started, the last one hired is the first one to let go when funding goes away. Well, I was the first one to let go. But I was in very good hands because I went up to Mr. Folsom at Mount Dora High and stayed there for 20 years. And I loved working with the faculty at Mount Dora High. It was a family. And that was just the neatest thing. As soon as we see people around town and so forth, it's still a family. And we're still trying to check up on each other. And as everybody has said, the children, the students, they were also family. I mean, they come up to me. I now work in the hardware store now that I've retired. And I'm standing at the counter and I'm getting this look. And they're saying, are you Miss Wilson? And then we have to clarify, because Patty Wilson was at Mount Dora High some of my later years, and Wanda Wilson was at Mount Dora High. So we clarify which Miss Wilson, and then we go on with finding out about their lives and everything that's gone on. Mount Dora is a very special place to work, and to work with the students and with the families, because it was a family all the way around. Where did I get my teaching inspiration? It's because I was teaching baton all those years with my mother, and when Mr. Molnar and Mr. Folsom hired me, they both said, well, if you can teach all those kids baton, you can come teach school here. So it just rolled right into another thing. Fondest memories, I don't know how many of you remember, in 1980 we filmed Honky Tonk Freeway here in Mount Dora, and we were in between band directors. So since I worked with the drill team and the majorettes and the flags, and I had a band, I got to load up the tuba and the bass drum and all the big equipment every time they decided to refilm our area, or they canceled us or whatever. So I became very close with all the band family, and when the drill team won runner-up for national champions, that was a big deal here in Mount Dora. So like I said, it's all just been family and everybody working together, and that's the terrific part about Mount Dora.
Yay! What year did you graduate from Mount Dora High School?
I graduated from Eustis in '74. And when I went to Mount Dora to start teaching, I still lived in Eustis. And whenever we had the Mount Dora, not that there was any rivalry between Mount Dora and Eustis, my neighbors put signs on my door, like Panthers are going to slaughter the Hurricanes. And I'd come home to my front door decorated. So yes, small town, nice place to live.
Let's get some ladies in the back. Here we go.
Oh, well,
You're not teachers.
we're students.
We're so good.
Hey, that's important too.
Well, I had to let Dorothy talk to you. I have to let Dorothy. Dorothy knows more about it than I do, but I am a third generation Floridian, Mount Dorian.
Come on up here.
My mother graduated from Mount Dora High School, and I graduated from Mount Dora High School. Mom has been here since 1933. She came from outside of Ocala. She has been a member of the First Baptist Church for 85 years.
Talking about you.
My name is Carolyn Conliffe, and this is Joyce Conliffe, Joyce Thompson Conliffe. And I am the class of '65. I did not stay here except for a few years when I went to college, got my degree in nursing. I have been a registered nurse for 38 years, working mostly in intensive care. Retired about 10 years ago, and I moved back with Mother. My fondest memory of Mount Dora, as Mother and I, since I was raised here, walk downtown and go, do you remember when that building was the bank? Do you remember when that building was the grocery store, the meat market? And I also remember when the elephant skied on water skis in the lake. Yeah, I have many, many fond memories. And I started, and Mrs. Whittington, I believe, was my first grade teacher in Roseboro Elementary. But I have many fond memories. And I need to pass this over to Dorothy. Come on, Dorothy.
She's a teacher.
Yeah, you're a teacher, though. I know.
Tell us how you got started.
Yeah.
Well, I started out, my card is yeah.
Okay?
Yeah. And your name, please? Frances Sellers. There was one Frances Sellers already here when I came. She was my mother-in-law. But she was a nurse over at Waterman and Eustis. I started out teaching in Texas. I taught for 3 years, and I grew up there. And the second year that I was there, I had a roommate from, I've forgotten, but way out in West Texas. And she had a friend, she had gone to school in San Marcos. And she had a friend who called her one day, and he said, I come to see you, but it's just too far. He said, it's over 50 miles. He was at Fort Hood. And so he said, could I bring somebody with me? And he did. And I met David Sellers that way. And we dated that year, and then he got his discharge, so he came back and went to school in Miami. And I was out in West Texas by then. I was trying to double my salary, and I did. The first year I taught, I made $2,059 for the whole year. I divided that by 12 months. The first 2 years. The third year, I went out to an oil town. It's a small town of 10,000. There wasn't but one two-story house in the whole town. But the oil companies paid 95% of the taxes. So I doubled it. But I went home for the summer, or part of the summer, and my mother handed me this letter. She says, do you know who this is? And it was a letter from David. and we started corresponding. Of course, we were that many more miles apart, but we started corresponding, and by December of that year, I came down to meet the family. And then we married in, October, that's not right. We married in July of 1958 and came right on to Mount Dora. And I started my teaching in Florida with 6 years at Eustis High School. By then we had one daughter, and her second mother is sitting right up here.
5 years.
Because they had a rule in the county that you did not go back to school to work until your daughter or son was 1 year old. So she thought the world of Marie and Daddy Fred. The boys would say, "Mom, Daddy Fred's home," and Debbie would run out, "Hi, Daddy Fred." And I stayed at Mount Dora High School from, I believe it was 65 until 77. And that was the year that my daughter and I both graduated. She graduated and went off to school. And I went over to what is now Lake Tech and spent my last 14 years over there. And then my husband wanted to raise cattle. So we moved to Sumter County after he retired. And I found out what work was really like. My dad was one of those who said, if I asked to do anything like that, he'd say, "No, girls don't do that." So I had to learn at an older age. And he passed away in 2013. It took me a year to sell the farm, and I moved back to Mount Dora.
Yay.
So who wants to share stories about how teaching changed from the beginning of your career to the end of your career? Anybody have a good tale? Or anybody have another memory? No?
I think one of the things I remember, I was at the middle school, and discipline was becoming difficult. Up until that time, you really didn't have too much problem. But about that time, they came out that if you had any discipline problem at all, you went to the principal. And so it really, to me, my effectiveness in the classroom was diminished a little bit because, and also it came out that you could not put a hand on a student. Do you remember that? Well, I was sort of a hands-on person. And it wasn't a disciplinary thing, it was just sort of a closeness. And I was criticized for that from my principal. And I don't even remember which one it was, because the middle school had 18 principals. But anyway, I think that's one of the biggest changes I noticed. And that's been a long time ago, because I retired in the 80s.
Anybody else have a thought about how things changed?
Yeah. Can I just tell a story?
Sure. Say who you are.
I'm Tessie Harvey. I didn't teach here. I went through first through 12th grade here. And I remember something back from when I was in the 3rd grade, and I've told this to a number of people. I'll give my age away. This was probably 1951. My teacher was Esther McLaughlin, and I remember 2 things about her. First of all, she could cock her eyebrow up like that. And when she did that, you knew immediately you better stop whatever it was you were doing. And I used to practice and try to do that, and I never could do it. I don't know that it would have been a very effective classroom management technique later on, but it sure worked when she did it. But also that same year, we had a new student who came in during the year, and he had previously gone to a Montessori school. So he was accustomed to moving around the classroom. And he was forever getting up from his desk, and he'd wander over to the bookshelves or maybe to the blackboard or whatever, and Mrs. McLaughlin kept telling him to go back and sit down in his desk. Well, I don't remember just how long this back and forth persisted. But she finally had enough of it. And one day when he'd gotten up, she told him to sit down. She went and got a belt and tied him at his desk. And I laughed about that now because that would probably make the national news in this day and time. But he did learn to stay at his desk.
I have something really weird to tell you. Mother and Prof. Roseburg went to college together in Tennessee. So when they came to Florida, anything I did wrong, she knew before I got home. And this was first through 12th grade, you know, because they went to college together, and it was really incredible.
That didn't matter. It was for all of us.
Backwards and forwards and in between. So it was very interesting. We had 36 in our graduating class in 1955. We had reunions every 5 years. Now we'll be getting to have them every 2 years. Had 19 the last time we were there. But we still are very much flag wavers for go Hurricanes. Who wants it? Molly. Molly was in band with me.
I need to have help with
Getting up?
Thank you. I better sit on my chair.
Yeah, that would be good.
I fall around a lot. I've got a permanent bed over at Warden Hospital. Thank you, Jimmy. I won't say too, can you hear me okay? I won't say too much because I know all of y'all and I love you. I'm a teacher's aide at Roseboro Elementary School. And my first lady I worked with, first teacher, her name was Jill Ruhlman. Well, I love art. So anyway, what was our custodian, Marie?
Sam Hardman?
Sam Hardman.
Yes.
So I told him what I wanted, so he made me a Christmas tree out of chicken wire. So I went out, I forgot about Spanish moss having a bunch of bed bugs on it. So I covered that chicken wire with Spanish moss, and then I thought it's got to look like Christmas. So I got me a can of, he put it over a little chair. I got me a can of green spray paint. I sprayed that sucker. So just about and the kids were making little chains and little Christmas decorations and everything. So each of them came up and put their little goodies on my little Spanish moss Christmas tree. So we had to go to the cafeteria, and something bad really happened. They all had green hands, sticky. And another time, I've got to mention a couple more people that I think about. Margie Jackson, I was an aide to Frank Peck, Doris Thomas, and when my father passed away, they needed a teacher's aide over in Tiberias, and I got to spend the last month after I came back from the funeral to be a teacher's aide to Benny Kinsler, that was Doris Thomas's sister. Vita Thompson was the music teacher. And Martha Smith was my best girlfriend. We loved art, so we took all of our teacher aides. No wonder I'm poor. We took all the money that we got for being a teacher's aide, went to this store that had all this teacher's equipment and everything. I bought a lot of our art supplies. And each of us wanted to outdo the other one on these bulletin boards. I made paper stuffs. The pilgrims were all stuffed up, and I mean, they looked good. But one time I decided when Mr. Banner came on as a principal, you know, I think I can do something with an alligator. So I made this big green alligator paper stuff, and he took it to all the meetings. I was sort of embarrassed, but he was proud of that alligator. And then another time, I might as well laugh at myself. Another time, after I had alopecia, Mr. Aldrich had sent me out to the car with a load of books with assistant. Maybe it might have been your husband, I don't know. I walked under a tree, and my wig went up in the tree. I had books, but the wig was still in the tree, so that was terrible. And then Mr. Clement, and I loved Hazel Mullen because she taught my daughter loved Hazel in kindergarten.
Of course, Susie was always in trouble too, I remember that. Mr. Clement was in the gym, and he was telling all the boys and girls, I forgot what the thing was, but Gil was small, and he told all the kids, he said, now don't go over there to that box of basketballs. You all sit down. I think he was trying to register them or something. Well, my son Gil does not mind like he should, so he got over there, stuck his head in this big tall box trying to get a basketball out. So Mr. Clement hollered at him. He said, whose son is this? I didn't say he was my son, and then Gil pops up and he says, Mama, I'm your son. So he was always in trouble. Well, let me see what else I wanted to remember. And I want to say memories about Mr. Rittenhouse and Anna Ray's kindergarten. And when they tore Roseboro School down, I went out and took some pictures and I cried my eyes out because I thought maybe one building would be a museum, just one, Patty. And Patty has always taken care of the class of 55. She always got all the reunions together. We're not too many left of us now.
No, but we still have reunions.
And we still try to have, I cripple around and I lost my memory a little bit, but I just want to tell you I have loved Roseboro Elementary School with all my heart and soul and all the teachers. Thank you. One more thing, Dolores Carter's got 2 majorettes. Believe it or not, I was a majorette with Patty. Yeah, I can't even walk. That's all right, we're still Thank you, you're welcome.
I'm going to get back on the subject of how things have changed. I just couldn't wait to teach. I just felt, I've always, even when I was at Roseboro as a kid, I was an aide to the PE, and in high school, I taught something you won't believe. Music history, where a teacher who was a glee club teacher could have a junior high glee club. So I had been exposed to it because it's in my family also. But what bothered me when Jeb Bush said we need to be tested. And at first, I was in Seminole Spring, and I was all excited about going to the new school, going to school there. And so we were sending these things, not really in time for that one, but the skills are shown to you too. But while we were expected to, you teach this, this. And I can remember, just as plain as day, the third day, it's like 5 days we had it, and the third day, and this little guy from me, Bill, he comes up, he said, Gee, what am I going to do? I said, what do you mean? He said, we were doing testing and that kid threw up all over that test. I said, you put that thing in an envelope and you send that to Jeb Bush, Tallahassee, Florida. It really, from that point on, I didn't enjoy it half as much. I love the kids. I do it free right now. I mean, it's in I've done it ever since I was, in high school. But that, and it got to the point, I was the grade level chairman with 5 people under me when I quit, I retired and quit. And we had a grade book, and I had to meet with them, and we had to mark off what skill we were doing. I mean, I had to check them, and I was just their equal. And I didn't think that was right. I didn't like to do that. I didn't like to be put in that position that I had to be sure we'd all sit around. And I just looked at them and I said, did you do so-and-so? No, oh, yeah, we did that. I took their word for it. But it got to be, it just wasn't fun. Teaching was fun. Kids were fun, and when some of these mothers were upset, the whole atmosphere of education from that point on. And I'm hearing it still again, and they've got a new kind of testing right now in the math. And I'll never forget that. That guy come to me and said, what to do with it? That's better than having you.
All right, well, before we run out of time, any advice you would give current or future teachers? Who wants the mic?
I would say pray for our country, period. No,
Okay.
no, pray.
My advice would be learn from those around you. Because it was everybody that I worked with that nurtured me through all the years, whether it was Cynthia Shoemaker giving me ideas about what I could do about discipline. She taught English and I taught math all those years. Or Mr. Mulder or Mr. Drummond. I used to have lunch with George Drummond and Bobby Clement, and they took me from first-year teacher teaching math in the home ec room with me taking all of Bobby's knives off the counter so my kids wouldn't get a hold of them, and then teaching me discipline, and then all the great ideas teachers continue to give me through the years. And when I left Mount Dora High after being there for 20 years teaching math, Nancy Velez looked at me and she says, I'm going to stop recommending and saying how great our teachers are here at Mount Dora High, because they keep moving out to be county level trainers and working as different administrators, and we learn that from each other. So the best advice I can give newbies that come in is really lean on your co-workers and learn from them, because they've got a lot of experience of how to do all these different things, as Jeannie said, and we come in with the book sense, but we need the people sense, and we can learn that. And also, I learn more fun things to do with my students from working with elementary teachers and other teachers all around. So I think that would be great advice.
Excellent advice. Excellent.
And I'll throw one thing in about this young lady. She graduated from Eustis High School, and she's bragged about all her work at Mount Dora, you know, that place. Of course, I was principal there too. But we talked about integration of schools. Later, I became principal of Tavares High, and they was up and sent me to Eustis High, and it was during the riots. As a high school principal, I thought there were 2 students that I needed in the student body that I could depend on. Talk to anytime, day or night, 7 days a week. President of the student body and president of the senior class. I'm going to give you one guess who the president of the student body was. Of course, the other side is my daughter happened to be president of senior class. But we went through some interesting things then. And those 2 people took a lot of heat, a lot of heat. I tried to hold it down some for them, but it was tough.
My name is Amy Bolt, and my mom is Louise Mextro. And my sisters and I, we moved here with Mom and Dad in '75. So I'm very much a late comer to Mount Dora High School. But my husband Steve, I'm married to Steve Bolt, and he started here in probably in the mid-'60s. So we both graduated from Mount Dora High School, not together. And then we raised our children, and they all went through Mount Dora schools. So the most important thing that I think about Mount Dora is the fact that it is a real community. And so many of you have already said something about it being a community. And I always told my children, I said, don't ever do something that you don't want me to find out about, because guess what? I will find out about it. And all the teachers felt like they could discipline my kids, or if they needed to, they could pick up the phone and call me and say, they did this, such and so. And you appreciate that as a parent. You appreciate it as a community member. You have to stop and say to some kid that's, doing something that they shouldn't be doing, don't do that. But, it's not the same anymore. So I appreciate being in Mount Dora and growing up in Mount Dora schools.
I happen to know Steve Bolt.
You do.
Like I might have handed him a diploma in the mid-'60s, and he was a super guy.
Yeah.
He was one of the students that should be laid out there in history and something about.
Thank you.
But if you really want to know some things.
All right. You have a thought?
Hi, my name's Debbie Robinson, or was Debbie Robinson. And I came from Bradenton today because I went to Mount Dora High School and Roseboro Elementary School from kindergarten till I graduated in 1972. Went to school with your son, and it was wonderful. I reflect on my youth and my childhood here, and you talk about the community, the schools, everything when I was growing up, of course, we complained all the time, but you reflect back on it, and it was ideal. It really was ideal. I am a teacher. I've been teaching for 20 years, and I've taught elementary, and I teach middle school, 6th grade. And I became a teacher because of Mrs. Troy. She was my 4th grade teacher at Roseboro. Not to say that all of the teachers I had weren't awesome. Mrs. Clement, I loved her. She taught me how to sew. And I loved everybody, but she influenced me, I think, more because of her personality, because she was fun, she was happy, and I wanted, for some reason, she stuck in my head, and I wanted to be just like her. She was taller than me, but she was awesome, as were most of my teachers. I mean, I remember 6th grade getting paddled. I know, I'm very little. I shouldn't have gotten paddled, but a student got me in trouble. And back then, it was just asking me the page number, what page we're supposed to be on. Today, and I got paddled for that, but today, students get away with a lot more than that. I loved growing up here. And I love talking about Mount Dora to my students. I always tell my students, or I have friends that always say, why are you still teaching? And I said, because I get to be on stage. I said, I love to perform, and I love to see my students perform. And I said, when they know you care about them, then they work twice as hard. And I feel like that's what happened to me. I watched my teachers, I learned from them. I am old school. I don't go along with everything that goes on today, but I've learned you have to have a lot of patience. And I came here because I wanted to thank you all, because you're the reason why teachers still teach and work hard. Teachers that work hard, it's because of the teachers they had in the past. So I just want to thank all of you.
Thank you. She's going to get the award for traveling the farthest.
Thank you. I didn't teach here, but both of my parents did. They were Dan and Bertha Spear. We moved here in 1948. I was 6 years old. I started 1st grade at Mount Dora Public School along with Jessie, and Jessie and I went through the 12 grades together. I was subject to, as all kids growing up in Mount Dora were, to having everybody tell all your bad deeds to your parents before you can even get home. The story about how we ended up here in Mount Dora I find kind of amazing. And we loved living here. My family loved living here. I ended up not becoming a teacher, or I decided I wasn't going to become a teacher because my parents were both teachers, but I ended up teaching at Northwestern University for many, many, many years. But how we came here, my parents had moved us to Milton, Florida the year before. They didn't like it there. They took a drive down to Miami for a teachers meeting and drove through Mount Dora. And they said, as they drove through Mount Dora, this is where we'd like to live. And when they got home, amazingly enough, my dad had an offer from Prop Roseboro to coach the football team. So the next year, we moved to Mount Dora, and that's how we got here. And I loved growing up here too, as well, and really appreciated all the teachers I had here, including my parents.
We won 22 straight football games.
That's right.
In 3 years, and it was your dad that did it.
That's
and
right.
then we lost 7-6 for Eustis. And we called it useless, and it was because Bobby Belton was the Eustis the referee. It hurt.
So you know those statistics better.
Last chance to share its story. Thank you all for coming out. This was fabulous. We are working, I'll just tell you a couple things that the Historical Society is working on. We are here to preserve memories, and so Dorothy and Susan in the back are working on a story collection project that they are recording, which is one of the reasons why we videoed this, because none of us can write as fast as you all talk. And so the other thing we're looking for, the Mount Dora Historical Society did a great job of collecting up to about 1940. And then I think people stopped thinking it was history. And now, of course, all of that is history. And if we don't get it soon, we're going to lose it. So we're trying to scan photos of things that happened, schools, significant people, which many people have in their family photos. They think that's just my family photos. But if you're standing in front of the Donnelly building and it's in a time period, that's a historical photo. We are scanning all of those and giving you back the original, plus a disc if you want it with your scanned image or a flash drive or whatever. If you will loan us your photos, go use the mic again. We are working on that. We eventually are going to have them all online to share with the world, but are glad to be able to do that. So if you're interested, talk to us. We also run the History Museum. We have our t-shirts up here. The project we did 2 years ago that was filmed by a graduate of Mount Dora High School, Matt Highland. We talked to Jeff Ray and Shirley Grantham and Brandon Wald and did some stories about the development of the waterfront and this kind of thing. This video is about an hour, sells for $20 if you're interested in one. Carolyn will be happy to sell you that, or a book, or a t-shirt for the museum. If you are not a member of the Historical Society, it's $15 to join, $100 to be a life member. If you join today, you get a free decal for your car or your house for joining. We have flyers up here as well about that. But feel free, we have lots of cookies. She went with lunchbox favorites for our cookies today, and so feel free to linger. I think the library stays open until 6, so you can stick around and share with one another. But we thank you all for coming. Susan.
Can we get a picture of all the teachers together?
Yes, all the teachers in front, we're going to grab a photo. Thank you for being here.
What are you going to do to the voice? Are you going to twirl my head?
Can I mail it to you?
Because I never do things well. You can get it. But I thought that...